All Wight County School Boards in session. Madam Clerk, please take a roll.
Mr. Colick,
Here.
Mr. Cunningham,
Here.
Mrs. Perkins,
Here.
Mr. Wooster,
Here.
and Mr. Marsh.
Here.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the agenda for closed session as I'm sorry. One moment.
Second.
He didn't finish.
Oh, he did. Oh, no, he did.
Yeah, as presented.
I don't know, over there somewhere.
Second.
Any discussion? Madam Clerk?
Mr. Colick,
Yes.
Mr. Cunningham,
Yes.
Mrs. Perkins,
Yes.
Mr. Wooster,
Yes.
Mr. Marsh.
Yes. Motion passes.
Mr. Chair, I move to approval of agenda on amendments for open session.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. Madam Clerk?
Mr. Colick,
Yes.
Mr. Cunningham,
Yes.
Mrs. Perkins,
Yes.
Mr. Wooster,
Yes.
and Mr. Marsh.
Yes.
My bad. It's been a crazy day.
You want one?
Is it wrong?
You gave us the wrong one.
Oh, jeez. Oh, Lordy.
If you send it to me, I'll just bring it up on the screen.
Yeah, I'm just trying to find out. I think it's in the other folder. Sorry, y'all.
Mr. Chair, I move to go into closed session to review the FY 2025 personnel roster posted on board docs under Personnel tab number 11.1 as authorized by Virginia Code 2.2-3711A1 for the purposes of discussion, consideration of prospective candidates of Wight County Schools for employment.
Mr. Wooster, I didn't change it to 26, so I'm on a roll, sorry. It's FY 26.
FY 26. Do you want to repeat the whole thing?
I think if you just say that it's corrected to 26, it's fine.
Okay, corrected the motion to FY 2026.
Yes, thank you, sorry.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk.
Mr. Colick?
Yes.
Mr. Cunningham?
Yes.
Mrs. Perkins?
Yes.
Mr. Wooster?
Yes.
And Mr. Marsh?
Yes, motion passes. And on that, we'll go into closed session.
Where do you want me to say? Yeah.
All right, we're back in session.
Mr. Chair, I move that the closed meeting was conducted in conformity with the provisions of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act as required by Section 2.2-3712D of the Code of Virginia, and certify that only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements were discussed, and only such public business matters as were identified in the motion by which the closed meeting was convened were heard, discussed, or considered.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Madam Clerk?
Mr. Colick?
Yes.
Mr. Cunningham?
Yes.
Mrs. Perkins?
Yes.
Mr. Wooster?
Yes.
And Mr. Marsh?
Yes, motion passes.
Would everyone please stand for a moment of silence and the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, sir. You want to make your amendment? Yes, sir.
Mr. Chair, I move to amend the agenda to add an agenda item to reallocate one teaching position to a RBT position and a welding IA position.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Madam Clerk?
Mr. Colick?
Yes.
Mr. Cunningham?
Yes.
Mrs. Perkins?
Yes.
Mr. Wooster?
Yes.
And Mr. Marsh?
Yes, motion passes. Good evening. It is May 29th, 2025. We are in Westside Elementary School for a special called meeting this evening to approve the FY 25-26 budget. And that'll take us right into item 10.1, appropriation of the FY 25 budget for healthcare insurance costs.
Good evening. Before we get to 26, we have a couple things to wrap up for fiscal year 25. The first being I'm suggesting that we request an additional appropriation from the county for our health insurance fund. And let me say right off, this is not requesting any additional money from them. If you will recall, the county provided us lump sum funding, but it encompasses all of our funds, not, the operating, the textbook. Is that me or the microphone?
Yeah,
Okay.
there's like a humming.
Okay.
Hold on.
So you get a lump sum appropriation from the county, and you cannot exceed that. So that's why we have to go back and request an additional appropriation, because we know the health insurance fund is going to exceed its original budget of approximately $1.675 million. Now you're probably saying, well, where is this money coming from? The money is coming from, like, the operating account. It also comes, we have some grants that pay for some staff. We also have our food service employees that pay. So all of that is going into the health insurance fund. So, but we do believe we're going to dip into the health insurance reserve a little. But the bottom line is you cannot exceed your appropriation, your budget. So this is not requesting any additional funds. I can't stress that enough from the county. It's more of a formality, make sure we're in compliance with the Code of Virginia, and to get it to them as soon as possible. Any other questions?
Thank you, ma'am. Any questions from the board? Okay, so this one's fairly easy. All right, can we get a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the resolution requesting the Board of Supervisors increase the Isle of Wight County Schools fiscal year 2024-2025 budget in the amount of $1,675,000 due to increased health insurance costs.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any other discussion? Madam Clerk?
Mr. Colick?
Yes.
Mr. Cunningham?
Yes.
Mrs. Perkins?
Yes.
Mr. Wooster?
Yes.
And Mr. Marsh?
Yes, motion passes.
The
That takes us to 10.2, ma'am.
The next item for your consideration, we've talked about this at the last meeting, but if you'll recall, we don't need that right now. The General Assembly, let me start. The General Assembly, during this budget appropriation time, they recommended a 1% bonus for SOQ-funded positions, and it is to be paid in this fiscal year. And in fact, we're receiving $610,000 that we actually will receive tomorrow. So we need to, we're suggesting that we use these funds as a retention bonus, being that all full-time employees that are returning for next school year will receive a $1,000 bonus, and all part-time employees would receive a $500 bonus. The total cost, as I have it right now, based on all of our current numbers, should be under $200,000. And that would provide, for full-time staff, it would provide a net paycheck or a net check to them of $646. And for part-time, $323. And we plan on paying it in between two paydays in June, so I believe it's the week of June 16th. So it will be a separate paycheck entirely that we'll, of course, do through direct deposit like we do now.
Understood. Comments, questions?
No, I think it's good.
Okay. Take a motion.
There's not one written
Just a motion to approve the employee retention bonus as presented.
You want to make the motion?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve the employee retention bonus as presented.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk?
Mr. Colick?
Yes.
Mr. Cunningham?
Yes.
Mrs. Perkins?
Yes.
Mr. Wooster?
Yes.
And Mr. Marsh?
Yes, motion passes. All right, now we're getting into the meat and potatoes of it. The actual budget. Dr. Kramer, you want to tee this one up, sir?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I apologize in advance for my voice, but I'll try to at least get through this portion. So, Mr. Chair, after the superintendent presented his proposed budget, and after the school board adopted its budget, the school division received, and other school divisions in the state, received additional revenue from the state. And our additional revenue is $1.2 million additional dollars, again, from the state. I am recommending that we use the vast majority of those additional revenue dollars to increase the pay raise from the original 3% that was recommended to 4%, an additional 1%. Additionally, I'm recommending that we provide our employees with a step increase, and that's an additional $451,000 of the $1.2 million.
That's for teachers and clinicians.
Teachers and clinicians for the step. And the other dollars are broken out. In fact, I think we can pull that up accordingly. Any additional information you'd like to share, Mrs. Ferry?
It's budget update. The other one. There you go.
Thank you, sir. So there are other additional recommendations, as you see there, outlined in the far right column. But again, I think it's important to note that the majority of the 1.2 million will be highlighted there in the beige. The change from 3% to 4% is an additional $466,231, and the additional step increase would be $451,458. And Ms. DeVere, would you speak to why that went down from $521,000 to $451,000?
Yes, sir. We know as of last week that we have 31 teachers that are either retiring or are resigning. So with that, when I recalculated, because they would, of course, not be eligible for a step increase, so when they come off of the roster as such, it reduces the cost of that step increase.
Makes sense.
So not to belabor the point, but I think it's important to note, we are recommending to you, the board, to approve an additional 1% for our staff and a step increase. So the vast majority, again, of these funds will be dedicated to the salaries and the step for our staff.
Thank you, Doc. And just for the sake of banging the drum, because I think this is very important to point out, and I know that my colleagues up here would agree that after this board adopted our budget, and after the county went through their budgeting process, and they determined how much money we were going to get for the schools, it was after that that the General Assembly and the state awarded us $1.2 million and some change.
That is correct, and we alerted the county administrator Keaton immediately upon receiving this information.
And I'd also like to point out that on this sheet we're looking at, that $93,000, it was a decision by the Board of Supervisors to make some reductions. And that $93,000 identifies the school's reduction. So, and to give those folks credit, for those of you that did not watch their budget discussion, they worked very hard and very diligently to keep the real estate cent per 100 increase down, and they ultimately kept it down to 4 by 5, and this $93,000 was a part of that contribution that helped in that effort. And as far as the 3% to the 4% increase, it's my personal opinion that it's probably the best thing we can do for taking care of our most valuable assets, and that's our employees. I don't know if anyone has any more comments about those sections. I do think there's going to be some discussion on the bottom half of that sheet. Mr. Colick?
Sure, I'll start off. Most of the things on the bottom part of the sheet, I'm good with. A couple things that kind of bypass some of our priorities, and I'm coming at this from how we as a board set up the priorities, not, what John Colick feels is the right thing to do. But we've got the counseling registrars. They fall around number 25 on our sheet. And then we also have the school leadership teams. They fall all the way at the bottom at number 37. So we are bypassing some of our priorities. So I'm, basically asking the rest of the board, are we good with that, or do we, want to maintain our priorities that we had set up before we knew how much money we were going to get? I can support the counseling registrars, number 25, but I have a very tough time supporting the school leadership teams because of where they fall in the priority list.
Thanks, sir. So just to kind of echo your point, I think I certainly support the prioritized list. I mean, we, as a board, we worked very hard, and Lord knows we spent a lot of time working on this. So I support the endeavor to stand by our prioritized list, because that's really our premise.
Right.
But I would like to offer Dr. Kramer an opportunity to explain how he came up with adding the school leaderships on top of some of the other prioritized lists or items.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll ask staff to assist with this. But I think as we looked at this list, we attempted to identify needs, and certainly some of what's in the priorities from the board are things that are not cost attainable, if I could say it that way. And I think we were looking, how can we address some of the needs here that we thought were more significant, if you will. But I'd like Mrs. Sullivan to assist with that. Certainly, I don't think there was any intent to bypass what the board deemed to be priorities.
Sure, and I think, for example, you were talking about some things that were cost prohibited or non-cost attainable, I guess you could say it either way. For example, priority number 2 with increasing that by the pay rate of the special education IAs by $2. Obviously, that amount is greater than the amount that we would have left over after doing the other actions, and that 4% is also including those individuals. So we are able to give them an increase to their pay greater than what we were expecting by giving them the 4% versus the 3%. So there's some things like that, and I was just to give you an example.
Right.
I don't need to go through, I know, the
No,
whole list.
but if we can,
Yep.
we had the conversation, and we said, hey, these things that we don't have the money for, let's skip over. If they're
Yep.
$100,000,
Yes.
even $50,000, skip over them, and we still have quite a number of things in the priority list, that are quite a bit less, $5,000, $4,000, $11,000, $4,500, $5,164, and so we've got a lot there above that we have the money for, and like we said when we talked offline is the bigger numbers we can't do. We know that.
Right.
The board understands that.
Okay, and I think when we're looking at for example, a lot of the smaller amounts that are on the higher end of the chart, and I think Dr. Coleman and Mrs. Getz can correct me if I'm wrong in this, but a lot of those are materials, and like Dr. Kramer said, we've decided to prioritize our people over things, and so as a team, we've decided what items either we've figured out how to cut. I know just recently, last year, we had a deficit where we had to tighten things up and figure out how we were going to make it through a year without certain replacement items. Those are the conversations that we had to say of these things that are priorities. Can we make these things happen by potentially within our budgets for materials and supplies, and making a focus on paying the people for the work that they do. I think I've made it clear in school leadership teams, we have teachers who are being paid for those duties, and transversely, we have teachers who are then volunteering their time because they want their voices heard on their leadership teams. And Mrs. Getz can speak to the fact that when she updated the principals on where we were in the budgeting process, the thing that they were most concerned about was the fact that the school leadership team was not being increased by 2 additional positions, because they really do find it detrimental in the climate and culture of their building. And putting that as a priority speaks to prioritizing teacher voice, choice, and feedback on the administrative teams more so than the replacement batteries for security radios. That's something that we're going to have to figure out how to cut costs somewhere else to cover that. But that's the reason for the increasing that for a higher position. But of course, that's you all's prerogative to make that choice.
So I think other than looking at the additional funds for utilities, to Mrs. Sullivan's point, the vast majority of what we're recommending is going to assist with pay. So whether that's changing pay for the items listed here or the step and the pay increase. So again, we wanted to prioritize our staff, as you aforementioned, Chair Marsh. Our greatest priority, our greatest resource is our staff. And that's what this attempted to do. But again, it's your decision and we will respect that. So if you ask that we remove one of these items or more, we'll certainly respect that and move accordingly.
Mr. Chair, if I may chime in here.
Yes, sir.
I've had multiple phone calls today speaking with various people on this. I'm kind of going to echo Mr. Collick's sentiment. I'm a firm believer that once we establish a priority and we establish budget, it should remain the same as far as prioritization or the budgeting amount. I want to look specifically at the 3% to 4% increase. We already approved the 3%. So we're looking at a 1% increase. On an average, you're looking roughly about, take the average salary of a teacher, you're looking at about maybe $600-700 a year, correct? Would you agree on that?
I'm not sure that the average is, I think you were saying 70,000?
Yeah, I might be figuring high. It's a guesstimate.
Do you think it's, okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I wouldn't think that's the average. I would think it's probably lower.
Yes.
Okay. So basically, excuse me, if you're looking at, for an extra 1%, you're getting $700 extra a year. However, that's prior to taxes. So then after taxation, it's going to drop it down to, would you guesstimate like $550, somewhere in there?
Everybody's tax rates are different.
yeah.
So.
I'm just throwing
Yeah.
numbers right now. The whole point that I'm getting at is I want to take care of our teachers, number one. But we did not approve that initially, and that has come up very recently right now. What I was looking at, I spoke with you earlier about the possibility, instead of doing the extra 1%, possibly holding that funding in the capital budget and utilizing that towards the health care fund to provide a better benefit package for the employees in addition to that 3% increase. So that's one of the things I would be looking at on that.
So we have already selected our health care plan for next year. In fact, tomorrow is our last day of enrollment. So employees, if you have not enrolled, do that this evening or tomorrow. That's the benefits package for our employees is already selected for this year. And while the 1% can be broken down to appear to be minimal, that is a lifelong change for these employees. VRS is based on your highest 36 consecutive months for the majority of our current employees. And for each year that amount increases, that adjusts their lifelong benefit from their retirement system. And so suggesting that a 1% is not a big deal is, in fact, it's a very big deal. And moving them in that right direction of getting closer to where we should be is why that's a priority. The reason why this wasn't decided before is because we didn't have those funds allocated to us. It was new funds from the state, which is why we're having to have this conversation at this point. We have new funds to determine what to do with. But the health insurance certainly would not be affected in this coming year for employees based on a reallocation of funds. And the other thing to consider is that we have over 800 employees and approximately 400 of them take advantage of our health insurance. This 1% increase benefits all of our employees. That would only benefit those who take advantage of the health insurance fund.
And I think it's important to note the additional 1%. So this would move from 3% to 4%.
Correct.
And you stated it very well, Mrs. Sullivan, but I think it warrants saying again, we are doing this now because we didn't have the additional funds at the time you adopted the school board's budget.
Okay, thank you for that. I freely admit I'm not familiar with how VRS does their retirement. I don't know if it's similar to that of the federal service where you've got a high 3 that they calculated on.
It is. It depends on what plan you're in, but for plan 1 and 2, which the majority of our current employees are still in that, we don't have that many hybrid yet that have come in, but it is based on your highest 36 consecutive pay months. There's an algorithm that they use that's a conjunction with the years of service with your highest pay that then comes to an amount that you then receive. which is why we want to do our best to pay our teachers or our employees well, so that their benefit then goes up. It's why it's better to do an increase in pay than it is to give a large bonus. The more you give in that pay, that is a lifelong commitment to those employees versus just a one-time.
Okay. Mr. Chair, if I may just continue on down the line here. Now, some of these have already been looked at. I'm just going to move down to the ones I have questions about. Under the supplements and stipends, I want to go to the CPR trainer stipend for $3,500. I know that's just a drop in the bucket as far as the overall budget goes, but I've discussed it before, and I apologize, I do not remember the designation of the bill that was just passed dealing with the emergency cardiac care response in schools. That does specifically state that persons will be certified in CPR. Does this stipend for the CPR trainer, will they provide CPR certifications based on current medical standards, which are good for 2 years, then have to be renewed?
Yes, this person will be a certified trainer who can certify other individuals in CPR.
Will they get a CPR card? Well, it's American Heart Association, American Red Cross, American Safety of Health Institute.
Yes, if they go through the CPR certification process, yes. If they go through the training, which is required for teacher licensure, no.
Okay, because under the bill, it does require teachers to be certified, not just trained.
Not all, but it does require a certain percentage of teachers to be certified.
So,
And those would, this person, what we're doing right now is we are already requiring teachers to be certified. We're just not providing them with the certification, which is, again, an unfunded mandate that we're placing on our employees. We want to be able to have this person fulfill that role so that we no longer are asking our employees to pay for something that we're requiring of them to have in our building that's beyond the basic teaching license that they have. And so teachers will be able to get trained, which means they also won't have to go out and search for that to renew their license. That is an additional support, but this person also will be able to certify teachers in CPR to meet the state mandate in per building allocation.
okay. Mr. Calick, you already mentioned the school leadership teams. I share the same sentiment. Again, I'm going to end my comments here. I do think that we need to adhere to the prioritization and the original budgeting. I have nothing further.
Are there any comments?
I agree with a lot of what Mark and Mr. Colick have said. I can't support the school leadership team funding. With only having basically 24 hours heads up for this pay increase to 4%, I don't feel comfortable supporting this and how it affects the budget itself. When we get to this travel training, this paper I haven't seen until just now. It goes from 11,300 to 1,200. Who is losing the training, travel training? Is that a certain category of people?
Which number are you referencing? Which number on the?
It's
On the rankings, I'm sorry.
down on this paper y'all gave us. Proposed budget revisions, major changes.
Where do you see travel and training?
It's almost at the bottom,
This
right
is
above supplies.
Yeah, it's a different, I do have it. It would be maybe that one. Yeah, so this is what I put together. This is in the same format that we've been using all along. And if you can scroll up a little bit, or I guess down. Because I wanted to, we need to get to the top of the page, please. There we go. So in the very first column here, this is what you've been seeing all along, and this is what you approved originally. There are the changes in revenue, and then as you work your way down, those were what you originally approved. There was another column in there that said discretionary and non-discretionary, if you will recall. And the travel and training, that 11,000 was considered a discretionary item. And it is for, so since the Board of Supervisors only approved what we had listed there as discretionary, none of those others items, what we had put there to be required, is what they approved. They did not approve all these other discretionary items, so that's why it didn't make the list. But it was for, I think it was transportation. There was 5,100 requested for transportation, 5,000 requested for CTE, and then the $1,200 represents tolls. So the tolls, of course, are required. We have to pay those. So that's
So we basically knocked out the extra training for the transportation department.
correct.
And CTE.
And the purchase services, why did we knock that down so much?
So the purchase services originally, we had a total of $529,138 that the school board approved. However, only $84,688 was a required, and that was due to contractual issues. And those are, we have 3% increases in a lot of our, standard contracts. So that's a required amount. And since the County Board of Supervisors only approved what was in the required column,
Okay, thank you.
which is the $84,688.
And Ms. Perkins, you mentioned that you were unclear about how the 4% affected the budget. Do you have a particular question that we can answer for you on that?
I'm still trying to go through everything with a lot of big changes from what we had approved, and with a 24-hour notice, I just haven't had a chance to go back and look at everything and see how it impacts the budget as a whole. When we have been talking since I've been on the board about the budget being tight and we have no money, all of a sudden now, instead of other things that we might need, a pay increase hits the top, which I'm not disputing the need. We approved the compensation study because of that. My issue is with how it plays into the current budget and how much it's tightening the belt. I just don't have enough information and time with this to feel comfortable okaying that right now.
Yeah, the risk of being redundant, if I may, Mr. Chair, members of the board, I can't stress enough that we received the additional funding, a notice that we would be receiving the additional funding from the state at the amount that's listed here, $1.2 million. And clearly it's articulated here in writing that we're asking to prioritize the pay of our employees. That allows us to honor this step for the first time, I think, since I've been superintendent, without needing to go back to the Board of Supervisors. We can also add an additional 1%, taking the pay increase to 4%. And I assure you, we are not alone. I am in constant communication with other superintendents, and many of the other surrounding divisions are doing the same thing. They're using the additional revenue from the state to prioritize pay for employees. And that is what we are attempting to do here, and that is what I'm proposing.
I think, Ms. Perkins, to your point, how does this impact our budget? I think in a very positive way. A month ago, we weren't expecting to get an additional $1.2 $2 million in state revenue. Today, we're having a very difficult conversation about how we're going to spend an extra $1.2 million. For me, this is a no-brainer. We absolutely go and give it to the teachers. To go from a 3% to a 4% to me is a no-brainer. I think most importantly, that's how it impacts our budget.
And to clarify, you're also giving that to your support staff as well, who are not getting a step increase and are on those are those individuals that came and spoke, the IAs that are, in classrooms with some of our neediest kids, that are there to support them. And so because we're not able to give that extra, which was priority number 2 for the board, because we're not able to give that in addition to the special education IAs for that $2 and $1, you're able to then give that 4% to those employees versus the 3%. And so that does help soften that one that we could not give. It helps soften that and allows them to have that increase as well.
Yes, sir.
I think the bottom line from what I'm hearing, we don't have to go back to the board to the Board of Supervisors to ask for more money. We got more money, 1.2 mil from the state. So now we're going to take that money and help the staff out. I don't see if it's a win-win here. I mean, it's a win-win. I can't see how we can lose with this. So that's all I have.
So over the past few minutes here, we've identified 3 things, and you can stop me if I'm wrong. So we've talked about the change in pay from 3 to 4, the CPR stipend, and the school leadership teams. So perhaps we can approach this in some sort of a pragmatic step here, and we'll just do a thumbs up, thumb down. Let's just go down that list of 3, and if y'all want to add something to that list, we can do that too. But up or down, do you support going from 3 to 4%?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, since I've been on the board, we have talked about this. Our teachers for the past several years have barely gotten a cost of living increase. All our employees barely got anything for cost of living. This is a unique opportunity. The state is resetting the baseline of what they are giving to us. So this has nothing to do with county funds. We already know that our teachers, our staff is actually paid below what most of the other school divisions pay. This is not going to make them surpass that by any stretch of the imagination, but it's going to help. Okay, it's like Mr. Worcester said, it's not a lot of money, but you know what? It's something, and it's compounded annually with the future raises, and then it's compounded when they retire. And so it's not costing the county anything. So I'm definitely in favor. This is the easiest vote in my mind that I've ever had. Somebody's giving me money and asking me where I should put it. Well, let's put it to our people. That's it. So I'm 100% in favor of changing it from 3 to 4%.
Mr. Wooster, what say you, sir?
I've got another question for you before I get into this. With the 3% versus the 4%, have you done a comparison as far as the difference of overall funding it would take for all employees? If you haven't, that's fine.
I'm not sure I'm following what your question is.
If you took the total number of the 3% increase for all teachers and then did the total number using 4%, what the difference between the two would be?
Well, for all staff, it is $466,231.
Okay. Excuse me. And that's at the 4%?
That would be, well, that's what the increase is, to go from 3 to 4.
Okay.
And that includes all your benefits associated with it. So it includes the VRS, it includes your employer taxes, it includes group life.
Okay. I agree 100%. You know, we need to support our teachers, but I'm still stuck on the fact that we already approved the budget. So I'm going to have to go against it.
So to be clear, you do not want to increase from 3 to 4%.
We approved the 3%, and I think that's where it should stay.
So using that logic, Mr. Worcester, we should be cutting a check back to the state for $1.2 million? I don't think so.
What say you, Ms. Perkins?
Is this a decision we have to make tonight, or?
Yes.
We have to approve this. It's the end of the month. Contracts go out tomorrow.
I don't like being put on this last minute, something that was never even in the budget at all. It's-
So you're no?
With the state revenue, is that just a blanket? We can use it however we want?
Yes.
And did the county give us all the money we asked for?
No.
So how much did we not get? I'm right, but
It's a, I think that is on the other
guesstimate.
page. We requested from the county as you can see there, almost 6.7 million, and we received 3.
So the budget we approved had a $3 million, $2 to $3 million difference. We received an extra 1.2. So to say that we just give it back if we don't do this with it is simplifying the issue, I think.
So you're no?
No.
Okay. Thoughts? I mean, we got 3 of the 5 saying thumbs up for 4%. We can revisit that. Let's go down to CPR trainer stipend. Yay or nay?
Yay.
You guarantee it is for a certification?
This will be a certified trainer, yes.
But
And all we have to do is pay the money to the American Red Cross or the, American Red Cross to be able to get the card. We've got that under control. Mm-hmm.
So they will be providing certificates of training?
Yes. Not to every teacher, to those who need to be certified.
You need to go back and review that bill,
Okay.
seriously.
Yep.
But as long as they are certified, I will support it.
There will be some teachers who will not be getting certified. They will be getting trained because that meets their requirements, but yes.
Okay, we can revisit that later.
Okay.
I'm good with it. Ms. Perkins?
Yeah.
Okay, so we got 5 yays on the CPR. School leadership teams, yay or nay?
No.
Yay.
You're no?
No.
Okay, so we got 3 no's. Where are you going to put the $13,578? Find a hole.
And that my view, bus tracker is up there, but we can go further up if we want. We've got quite a few things up there. We've got security, $15,000, lead nurse, $53,88. CTE credentials, I think we're good on, right?
Yes, we are good on CTE credentials with Perkins funds.
Can I share that list with you? Because I don't have that with me. I'll just look over your shoulder.
I mean, we've got the chartered transportation, if we need that to go up north. We got the Beta Club stipend. All these things are, and transportation, 5,100, all of these are above the school leadership teams.
I'm listening.
We have to make a decision tonight, so whatever we're gonna do, we gotta make it tonight.
That's right.
So if we wanna take the 13,000 out, 13,578, we need to make a decision right now on where we're gonna put it.
I
Bottom line.
concur.
Absolutely. Which two?
Either security.
Well, we cut fleet services quite a bit on several different lines. So if I was to make a decision, I would probably put the whole thing in fleet services.
How much did we cut?
Yeah, 35,000, cut here, 35 grand.
Okay, I
A
would concur
couple.
with that.
There's a couple different places down here.
So you're proposing taking the 13,578 and putting it all on fleet services number 14.
Yep.
Mr. Wooster,
I concur with that.
Ms. Perkins, Mr. Cunningham.
I'll agree with it so we can get this approved tonight.
I'm with you. So if I'm understanding correct, we're good to go and everything on the bottom half from change of pay below. And we've got 3 yays and 2 noes on the 3 to 4%. I would say that's enough to make a motion.
Yeah.
If somebody'd be willing to make a motion, unless you guys want to talk about it some more. No.
Yeah, as one package.
So the dollar amount doesn't change. We're just going to repurpose the school leadership teams into fleet services. That was prioritized number 14.
Yes, sir.
So I think the motion would read
Yeah.
to approve the FY26 budget and just read the total amount,
Yeah.
and we'd be done with it.
It's this is the document, sorry.
Yeah, so the document doesn't change. It's internal.
Correct, but what I want to point to is you need to be approving the total budget, which is over on the far right, of $100,847,997. And then this does go back to the county because they have to change the appropriation due to the additional state funds.
Okay.
Somebody want to make the motion, or
I'll
should I
make it.
read it?
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to adopt this final budget in the amount of $997,997.
Second?
Motion and a second. Any further comments? Just to restate, we're going to take what was presented for school leadership teams of $13,578 and reline that with
Fleet services.
fleet
With
services,
parts and supplies.
parts and supplies. Mr. Fike and Mr. Sullivan will be pleased. Madam Clerk?
Mr. Colick,
Yes.
Mr. Cunningham,
Yes.
Mrs. Perkins,
No.
Mr. Wooster,
No.
and Mr. Marsh.
Yes. Okay. And Madam Clerk, keep me honest here, because I know that we've got a couple add-ons. So
Yes, sir.
I show 10.4 as being next, pay scales.
Yes.
That's good.
So on the pay scales, I have the first page. I don't know if you want to scroll through them for me. So this is the teacher's pay scale based on a 4% increase. The second page is the clinicians. And you'll notice as you go through these, anything that's highlighted in red is a change, which we'll go over here. On the administrator scale, the child nutrition technician After, it was originally the liaison when you adopted the budget, but then when we brought food services back in-house, the name was changed to child nutrition technician. And then what you've already approved is changing the network administrator to system administrator. However, I have a typo there, because as you can see, that shows that it's a grade 6. It was a 3, it's a grade 6, and I have the wrong number there, because that number should be the same as another grade 6, like the athletic director, $75,391.
So what's it supposed to read?
Should be $75,391.
Got it.
Next is the support staff, and once again, we are just correcting a job title there from food service worker to child nutrition. The other one is changing or converting the courier to a operations technician. Then the next one, these are substitutes, and I'd like to point out that the items in red, the nurses, the LPN, RN, BSN, I should have highlighted the daily rates because of course that computes, but I didn't highlight them in red. But these are the rates Mr. Wooster suggested during your budget discussions. So those were changed. And then next is the supplemental pay scale. And we have two new ones, which you have just approved. One is for the CPR trainer, and the other is Handle with Care.
Will the school leadership change on this pay scale?
It will not. That was just an allocation amount. And so right now, each school gets 5. We had asked for 7, so they'll remain at 5.
Okay, so with the exception of the one typo,
Yes, sir,
the recommendation is to approve as presented.
with the one correction.
One correction. I want to give you kudos, Mr. Very. I like how you put the days of employment on here. It certainly presents a little different perspective when you're looking at salaries for all the employees.
I like all my documents to be good reference materials, if possible.
I appreciate that. Somebody like to make a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the fiscal year 2026 pay scales as presented.
Second.
Any discussion?
No.
Madam Clerk?
Mr. Colick?
Yes.
Mr. Cunningham?
Yes.
Mrs. Perkins?
Yes.
Mr. Wooster?
Yes.
And Mr. Marsh?
Yes. Motion passes.
And now, Mr. Marsh, 11.1 is going to be the
Yes.
reallocation of teaching position.
The one she wrote down. It's on the back of that. So there's 2. Can I have that back? This is the motion. 11.1 is that.
Mr. Chair, I move to amend, no,
No.
No. Reallocate positions.
All right, I'll make the movement. So, Board, I move to really reallocate one teaching position into an RBT, Registered Behavioral Technician position, and a welding IA position.
Second.
Any discussion? Madam Clerk?
Mr. Colick?
Yes.
Mr. Cunningham?
Yes.
Mrs. Perkins?
Yes.
Mr. Wooster?
yes,
And Mr. Marsh?
Yes, motion passes. And 11.2 will be the personnel roster.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the fiscal year 2026 personnel roster as presented.
Second.
Any discussion?
Question.
Yes, yes, sir.
Ms. Sullivan, are there any changes on this based on our vote on the budget?
There are not.
There are not. Very good. Thank you.
Madam Clerk?
Mr. Colick?
Yes.
Mr. Cunningham?
Yes.
Mrs. Perkins?
Yes.
Mr. Wooster?
Yes,
And Mr. Marsh?
Yes, motion passes. Any last comments from the board?
Let's take a break before doing the next one, huh? Next one's going to be a
Absolutely.
bit more in detail, I think. The zero-based budget.
I'm not going to leave here tonight without looking you straight in the eye and saying thank you, Mr. DeVere.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome.
And I know there was a lot of people involved in it, and I appreciate all the work that went into it. Ms. Sullivan, Ms. Getz, Dr. Coleman, all you folks that got into it. But Mr. DeVere, you in particular have succeeded in pulling us out of a fiscal hole and getting our books right. Thank you.
You're welcome. I made it through 1 year.
You did. I certainly would like to thank staff as well. Mrs. Sullivan, I'm going to ask that you and I have been discussing, would you give us sort of a recap for our teachers, what we can now expect?
Sure. Ms. DeVere, I think, had prepared something, and I can support her in
Okay,
that.
very good. And Mr. Very, would you
Yep.
share? And as she's finding her place there, I'd like to thank you as well, board members. I know this has been a really difficult decision. And yes, we have been making decisions as information has been made available to us, but I applaud you all as well in putting our staff and pay at the forefront. And as many of you stated, there's a ways to go. I think we've made some progress this evening, but we are far from where we need to be relative to compensation for our staff. And I suspect that that is going to be a large part of the conversation as we look at budgets moving forward for 2027. With that, Mr. Very or Sullivan?
Yep, she's passed it over. So what you just voted on, again, to wrap that up for those who are listening that are affected by this the most is our employees. It's a 4% increase for all staff. In addition, the teachers and clinicians who are on a step scale will receive a step increase. And then additionally, an $1,000 bonus for full-time employees, $500 for part-time, which is a net of $646 for full-time and $323 for part-time. And then no change to the health insurance premiums for employees. We have eaten that cost as the employer to maintain their same health insurance. Just wanted to provide a summary of that for everyone who's listening and for you all for the work that you've done. And thank you.
We're done.